Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something called latent learning.
Mm.
Think of it as, well, your brain learning in stealth mode,
Mhm.
picking things up without you even noticing until, bam, you need it.
Exactly. It's fascinating stuff.
So our mission today is to unpack this hidden learning and, see what it tells us about how our minds work.
Right. And especially how it stacks up against what we normally think of as learning the active, putting in the effort kind.
Okay, let's start there then. Active learning, that's like studying for a test,
Right.
right? Obvious effort, obvious goal.
Yeah, precisely. You're consciously trying, maybe getting feedback, aiming to master something. It's deliberate.
So how is latent learning different? How does it, sneak in?
Well, it's much more passive. It happens often just by exposure. You're in an environment, you're observing things, maybe building a sort of mental map
Without trying to.
without any immediate goal or reward tied to it.
Yeah.
You're just there, taking it in.
Got it. And the classic study here involves rats, doesn't it? Tolman's maze.
Ah, yes, Tolman. That's the cornerstone. What he found was pretty revolutionary at the time.
Tell us about it. What did those rats reveal?
So he had groups of rats in a maze. One group got a reward cheese every time they reached the end. They learned pretty quickly.
Makes sense. Standard reward learning.
Right. Another group got nothing. They just wandered around. A third group, though, they wandered with no reward for like 10 days.
Mm.
Then they started getting rewarded.
Okay, and what happened with that third group?
They suddenly started finding the cheese way faster than the group that was rewarded from day one. Almost immediately, in fact.
Whoa. Okay, they must have learned the maze layout before the cheese showed up.
Exactly. They built a mental map, a cognitive map, just by exploring, even without any reinforcement. The learning was latent hidden until the reward gave them a reason to show it.
That's quite something. Learning without even knowing you're learning, almost.
Yeah.
So how does this play out for us, in everyday life?
Oh, all the time. Think about watching a colleague use some software feature. You're not actively trying to memorize it, maybe just glancing over.
Right.
But later, when you actually need to use that feature, you might find you
Huh.
sort of know how, or you pick it up much faster.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Or like navigating a part of town you've only ever been a passenger in.
Perfect example. You weren't studying the route, but if you suddenly had to drive it, you'd probably have a decent sense of direction, much better than if you'd never been there. Your brain was quietly mapping it.
So we're constantly absorbing this background information, but what makes it, well, surface? What triggers us to actually use this hidden knowledge?
Motivation, that seems to be the key trigger. The rats needed the cheese. We need a reason, a problem to solve, a task to complete.
Ah, okay. So the learning happens passively, but performance, actually using the knowledge, needs that spark.
That's right. The knowledge is stored away, latently, but motivation unlocks it. It suggests, maybe learning environments should foster curiosity and exploration, even if there's no immediate test or reward. Plant the seeds, basically.
That has big implications for, say, online learning, or even just sitting in lectures, doesn't it? Places where you might feel a bit passive.
Absolutely. It suggests students could be absorbing far more than we think, even if they're not, actively participating every second, just being exposed, observing. It counts.
So observation itself is a powerful learning tool here.
Immensely powerful. It provides the raw data for this latent learning. You're picking up patterns, procedures, information, often without conscious effort.
And maybe that explains those moments when a student suddenly gets something, like it clicks out of nowhere.
It could definitely play a role. They might have been latently absorbing the pieces all along, and then with maybe a little nudge or the right context, it all snaps together.
It's fascinating. And this whole idea, back when Tolman proposed it, it really challenged the dominant thinking, right? The behaviorists.
Oh, absolutely. Behaviorism was all about observable behavior and direct stimulus response, driven by reinforcement. Latent learning showed that cognition, mental processes, internal maps was crucial. What happens inside the head matters, even if you can't directly see it or reward it immediately.
It shifted the focus inward, so to speak.
It really did, from just inputs and outputs to understanding the processing in between.
Now, something briefly mentioned was, does this happen more at certain ages? Are kids, soaking things up latently more than adults?
That's a really interesting question. The sources don't give a hard yes or no, but you could speculate, couldn't you? Young children are constantly navigating new environments. Perhaps their brains are more primed for this kind of implicit pattern pickup.
Just constantly absorbing the rules of the world without explicit lessons sometimes.
Potentially, yeah. It's an area where more research would be fascinating.
So wrapping this up a bit, what are the big takeaways for us? For educators or just for anyone trying to learn?
Well, for teaching, maybe value creating rich environments for exploration alongside direct instruction. Give learners space to just observe and absorb.
And for us personally.
It's a reminder, I think, that learning isn't just confined to when you sit down to study. You're learning constantly from your surroundings.
Yeah.
Pay attention to what you're exposed to. You might be building useful knowledge without even realizing it.
So the main point is, we're always learning, often under the radar. Latent learning shows the power of just watching, observing, and how knowledge can sit tight until we need it.
That sums it up perfectly.
Mm.
And maybe a final thought for you listening. Consider all the stuff you passively encounter, daily conversations, places, media. What hidden knowledge might you be building right now? What seemingly random observation today might actually be surprisingly useful down the road. It's kind of cool to think about how much our brains are doing behind the scenes.